Hello again, this is Mike Graham from MRM bringing you affiliate tips educating beginners and intermediates. And I wanted to say some more about what the perfect business would look like with reference to what I set out in the beginning to depict, which is what if you went into the theory of into the realm of metaphysical ideals, would the perfect business look like? Now, obviously, most people don't start off from this standpoint because it really doesn't occur to them. And most people are told not to aim for perfection. And I think that's probably quite right. But here I'm trying to sort of discuss a notion what would it look like if one could have the perfect business? And in the last video, I talked a lot about experts and how seeking the advice of experts and people who know is a good idea. And yet, I had also had a contradiction in as much as people who are at the start of their marketing journeys more easily learn from people who may just be one or two steps ahead of them. There is this wonderful story about a sociology teacher who was actually a pupil in the sociology course he was teaching, but somehow he'd found himself taking a class and just carried on doing it. And the way that he managed to keep his expertise going was just by being a chapter ahead of everybody else, so that he'd read the chapter over the course of a week, turn up at the lecture hall, and give the lecture on that particular chapter. Then he'd just rinse and repeat for the next week. And that way people thought he was a very good teacher. So, this method obviously works. On the other hand, there are great marketers out there who know what they're talking about. But something I wanted to talk about today was the idea of modeling yourself on somebody or imitating them. Now, you have to be careful when finding somebody you wish to model yourself on, that you don't just rip them off completely. You have to, it's a thin line you have to not cross when modeling somebody that is a top marketer, that you don't just take down verbatim what they're saying and teaching, but you adapt it somewhat and change it so that it doesn't look quite as obviously plagiarism, but has an element of your own style in it. Of course, some of us probably cannot escape from our own styles and indelibly put our own mark on it. And I think that's a good thing, because ultimately the best asset we have in marketing is ourselves, even if we ourselves don't think so. Anyway, this notion of modeling oneself on an expert is sort of brought out by Russell Brunson a lot when he talks about this in funnel hacking. And he shows you exactly how to do it. And if you wanted to find out more about it, then, I'd suggest you go and read one of his books like .com Secrets. It's quite readable and he has a lot of information. But, for some people it may be too far ahead in their careers to go and do that. But when you model somebody, or you feel like modeling somebody, then you have a look at their work in sort of really strong depth. You have a look at the emails they write, you have a look at their funnel, and you literally go and model it on it. You change it a bit, but you do try and get what you produce to be quite close to the person you're modeling. Now, how does this relate back to the perfect business in the metaphysical realm of ideals? Well, that's another matter. But if we allow that a certain principle involved is that of modeling, and the perfect business is modeled on other perfect businesses, which may sound sort of slightly strange. But this notion of modelling, I think it really has a lot of mileage in it, because there's no point in going out and reinventing the wheel. There are so many successful online businesses where people are really making a lot of money that, there are models out there that you can go and get. And it's an important principle to follow. And, just in case you're thinking of reinventing the wheel, well, the answer is just don't. Because it's always going to work if it's 360 degrees round and not a degree more or less. Beyond modelling, I think you've got to be confident in yourself as well to actually progress, because somewhere inside you've got to know that you're going to do it, because otherwise you're probably wasting your time, because it is a lot of hard work. And if you're going to set out on it, after a certain time you're going to realize that you put a lot in. So I think you have to have a degree of confidence that one day you will actually crack the code and make it. Because if you don't, then it's sort of an awful lot of time to put your energy into to get nowhere. Now, a lot of marketers do talk about not striving for perfection, but creating something that's good enough. And there is a saying in the business that producing something just good enough is good enough. But, that principle can still be enshrined in the model of the perfect business, where the perfect entrepreneur is actually a very pragmatic sort of a person, and he's not striving for perfection. He's not always trying to make everything absolutely the way it should be, but he's actually producing stuff that he thinks is good enough to get the attention of people who he wants to have in his business. Because at the end of the day, you have to get the stuff out there to get looked at, and you have to get the people along to your web page or to your advertisements to have a look. Because at the end of the day, you have to have products which are sold to people who want to buy them. And there is no getting away from the simple fact that you have to have targeted traffic visiting your website who are interested in buying your products, and therefore you have to make it possible for them to come into your business to have a look at, see what's there. And it's rather like a process of laying down little bits of cheese for a mouse, although hopefully you'll have something better than a mouse trap at the end of it, because that is obviously not a very pleasant thing to do to a would-be customer. But giving them an incentive to visit is the basic way in which you have to go ahead. Now, if this all seems a little bit complex, then, forgive me if my words are slightly muddled up. But having an online business is always just going to be about making sales to the right people who want your products or the products that you're selling. And therefore, you have to find the people. You have to tell them that you're selling these products. You have to capture their attention, get their interest up, and keep increasing that interest, warming them up until buying your products is a far more sensible course than not buying your products, because you have exactly what they want, at the time they want them, in the way they want them. And that's really it. The perfect business is really one where the marketing gets through to the potential customers so that actually they're rather like the dog waiting for its meal, and putting its paw in the air and starting to drool and leaving pools of saliva on the floor. And the meal, when it comes, it's the most rapturously greeted thing on the planet. Do you really have to sell a meal to a dog? Well, not really. You've already done the pre-marketing, the warming up. The dog knows what's coming, and that's it. And that is really where marketing has to take your would-be customers so that they do just buy. Because there's no way that they can really say no without hurting themselves. And no self-respecting dog has ever turned down a decent meal or a decent walk. Anyway, that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, then give me a like, subscribe to my channel if you want to hear more, and leave a comment below. And please get this free product that I'm advertising below on getting targeted traffic, because that is definitely one of the main aims of your business, is just getting targeted traffic. Then you can do the marketing bit to them. Thank you for listening. I'll see you on the next one.